afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Global PayEX Town Hall series, where we typically invite C-level leaders in finance to talk about the modernization of CFO functions, including B2B payments. We talk about the trends, the predictions uh, that is affecting or the functioning of their industry. And I think the most important or the interesting part, I would say, is to kind of find out their journey to the top, right? So these are typically established leaders who have kind of reached the top. So the last, and you should stay till the end because the last part of it actually talks about the advice, the recommendations, how they can reach and excel. So in today's webinar, I'm delighted to have Ashish, who's the CFO of No Broker. No Broker is India's first property tech unicorn. PropTech is a buzzword, or I would say the short form of property technology. So property technology is essentially refers to the application of technology innovation in the real estate industry. I'm sure a lot of you who have invested in the real estate industry have used some form of prop tech, right? Be it for property listing, buying and selling your property, your investments, renting it out, and even property management, right? So again, prop tech is pretty hot. So yeah, we're going to all talk about it in the next 25 minutes. Ashish, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited, very much looking forward to a great conversation. So I'd probably like to, quickly
Thanks.
jump
Thanks.
right in.
Yeah.
Yeah, quickly jump in, and maybe Ashish, if you could tell us a little bit about your background. I know that you're from Cal and you've kind of studied in the most prestigious institutes, but I'm sure hearing from you, your journey to become a CA in your first attempt. So a little bit about your start of your career as well as where you grew up, right? That would be super interesting.
I was born in Kolkata, but I grew up in a small town called Kolaghat, which is some 60 odd kilometers from Calcutta. Pretty much, I studied till class 4 in that town. And after that, I moved to hostel because there was no English medium school in that particular town. So my mother courageously sent me to a hostel. So I was for a couple of years in Ranikhet, Nainital. And then when my family shifted back to Calcutta, I completed my schooling in Don Bosco and then in La Martiniere. Uh, got into St. Xavier's for my BCom, and I simultaneously was pursuing CA. After completing my CA, for anyone who's based in Calcutta, it's a dream to sort of become, to be placed in ITC. So ITC is one of the only big companies which is headquartered in Calcutta, has a very swanky office, and whenever, and the CA Institute is actually right 100 odd meters from that particular office. So that was like one of the most sought after, companies to work. So I got through ITC and I was posted to Bangalore. So ITC has a rule that they never post you in your home location. So I was in Bangalore, worked in the ITC Foods division for close to 6 years. And then I got an opportunity to work in No Broker. Uh, and it was a big decision, but I thought, okay, the founders, there was, a good conversation with the founder. So I took that chance, joined as a finance controller, and almost 7 years now in No Broker. I was elevated to CFO last year. So overall, a very, very learning experience, very different sorts of experience, both in ITC and No Broker. And in my personal time, I sort of follow a lot of football. So I'm a big football fan. And I try to sort of squeeze in 30 to 40 minutes of workout at least 5 to 6 days a week. So pretty much sums up
Sure. No,
uh,
that's great.
about me.
Football, strength training, and exercising. That's really great. And talking about ITC, I'm good to know that you are so fit because ITC has a wonderful canteen. I remember I did a small project there, and the lunch and the food is like too good there, the canteen.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So no, thanks, Ashish. I think that's a great start about how you started. So I would kind of go to the next question, which is about the real estate segment, because I think you've been in the real estate segment for the last 7 years. You've seen how it all started, how it entered the, how it was pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. So a little bit about property tech, because I think you've seen the ups and downs, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So pre-COVID, real estate was in a slight bit of downturn. You had, you know, the GST demonetization, two big events which sort of occurred in the last sort of 8 9 years, and these are the events which directly affect the real estate market, especially the buy and sell part of it. Rental was always evergreen, but interestingly, post COVID is where the things started sort of picking up really for us. One of the factors that happened was that because of lockdown and social distancing, you really couldn't visit the properties. So the virtual property tours and the online property listings, that got a significant boost. So overall, the adoption of prop tech increased a lot in COVID. One of the other trends that we sort of saw was that pre-COVID, people were okay. The youngsters, especially the young generation, there was a rental sort of a mindset that why buy? Rental was always the flavor. But post-COVID, what has happened is that the rents have basically skyrocketed. They have become borderline unaffordable. And the big reason for that was that during COVID, the entire construction came to a grinding halt. All the developers had got, the RERA extension. So there was no supply in the last 2 3 years. Whereas in COVID, the companies kept on recruiting, new people were joining the workforce, and people who had sort of gone back to their natives, they came back. So on one side, there's no supply, but the demand has sort of increased manifold, which resulted in, I'm sure the audience is aware of the difficulties in, let's say, finding good quality apartments in the budget which they want. So the rents have seen an increase of 20 to 40%. I mean, it is anyone's guess. Because of which the especially the younger generation now, they are increasingly shifting towards buying properties, because the amount of rent that they are spending, and also the social security aspect. And the last trend, I think, probably I might want to share, is that there is an increased preference towards gated communities. Because what's happening, people are working from home, so the husband, wife, let's say kids, everybody's working from home. They need bigger homes, they need amenities like power backup, they need all the amenities, whether it's your gym, swimming pool, etc., in your complex. So the preference towards gated communities has been very very high, and that's
Yes,
why
yes.
the overall increase in the rent for the gated communities has been very high,
No, I
especially in
agree.
the last few years.
Yeah, I think all the major cities in India has
Yes.
kind of witnessed it. Bombay, Gurgaon, Bangalore, I'm
Yes.
sure. Right? Bangalore, I think, came into the news because of, I think you mentioned about 40%, but I think I saw in some places in Koramangala or HSR, which it jumped like 100% also. So, so it was like really funny to see all those memes, especially about people asking for mark sheets, right, to give properties.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
great. So Ashish, no, great insights. Then I want to quickly, shift gears and talk shop. So as a CFO of India's first, unicorn in PropTech, how was the day of a CFO like, right? How I know you play soccer or maybe do the gym. After that, when you come into the office, if you can just walk us through, how was the day of a CFO like?
So, so one thing, see, when you enjoy your work, so I mean, the boundaries tend to blur. So it's not that once you're out of office, then things are off, you switch off. And especially in a startup, you cannot really, switch off. So, uh, like, let's say morning I get up and I complete my workout, etc. And after my daughter has gone to school, so I have some free time. So I typically start the day by checking on my emails, which sort of came in the last night, and plan for the day ahead. And once I finish my breakfast and head to office, at least couple of days. So my team sits out of a different office and I sit in a different office. So at least twice a week we try to sort of meet for 1 hour face to face, my top five reportees, and discuss about business and overall personal stuff, anything under the sun. We sort of meet, because it's very important, especially when we are working in different offices, to sort of have that face to face interaction. I'm personally also involved in one of the businesses of No Broker from an execution and operation standpoint. So No Broker Financial Services. So that business, the entire P&L, I'm answerable for that. So a lot of my time spent is being spent on, you know, let's say figuring out the previous day's numbers, analyzing, dissecting the previous day, overall revenue, performance, etc., and then strategizing how to sort of uh, grow it further. Then because I sit in office with where all the vertical heads of No Broker sit. So No Broker, while has overall, you can say, four major businesses, but within each business there are 15 to 20 sub businesses. So we have 25 to 30 vertical heads. These are all engineers, and they are responsible for that particular sub functions P&L. So a lot of time is spent interacting with them on a daily basis, figuring it out, how the month has been, any challenges, any obstacles that they see, and in generally basically figuring it out how the operations are. And I try to keep a couple of hours for disruptions, because every day there is something. If I've planned to do something today and plan to devote the entire day for that, it never happens. Something out of the blue always comes. So I always try to sort of keep 1.5 to 2 hours for disruption, something which has occurred that day and which needs sort of immediate attention. So that is pretty much how I would say a rough day looks like. Yeah.
No, that's great. Great to know how the day of a CFO of a company like No Broker works. So great to know that. So Ashish, next question is again changing gears. Given the fact that we have like 20-25 minutes overall, talking about working capital, right? In a e-commerce digital economy kind of a company, right? So if you could kind of help for somebody like somebody in the finance function, right, to know as a CFO of a leading company, what are these components of working capital components that you need to take care, manage, right? And the second part of my question would be, obviously there are areas like cash flow management, receivables management, stuff like that, right? So if you could maybe touch a little about the specifics about working capital management and especially the
Sure.
optimization part, that would be very helpful to the audience.
So, No Broker, I'll just give a quick background about No Broker because it's directly related to the question. So, No Broker has multiple businesses, and one thing that we are very, very conscious of, and whenever we launch any new business, what we ensure that we collect the money upfront from the customer. So typically, how a real estate transaction happens, a broker connects both the owners and the tenants, and at the end of the transaction, the broker collects the brokerage. And broker's interest is aligned in basically, it's not his, the interest is not to serve you. It is basically get the maximum brokerage out of the two of you. And there's a lot of bias in terms of their decision making, etc., and they collect money once the deal is done. Now, No Broker is essentially using technology. We do not have any feet on street. So when we are connecting owners and tenants, one thing that we do is we collect the money upfront. One, this ensures that there is no bias in what sort of properties that we are going to show, or we are going to push higher rental properties or higher buy and sell properties. So one, there is no bias. Second, we don't have the wherewithal to collect the money once the transaction is closed, because we don't have feet on the street. So we are very, very clear that we'll take money upfront from the customer. This sort of solves the overall working capital problem to a large extent, because any transaction that we do, whether let's say whether buying or selling a house or renting a house, you have opted for any of our paid services, or once you find a house, No Broker helps you with packers, movers, with rent agreement, painting, cleaning, etc. All of these services, we collect the money upfront from the customer, because we are not there physically on the ground. This sort of negates 90% of our receivables risk because we have got the money upfront. Second thing that we try to do, now I touched upon these businesses that we are doing, let's say packers, movers. So if a customer has opted for no broker, packers and movers, and our service partner has completed the shifting, let's say today evening. So by today midnight, the service provider will get the settlement for their particular job. So whatever they are owed for that job, we settle to the partner that day midnight, rather than having a weekly cycle or a fortnightly cycle. The reason is that we this is a very very big differentiating factor for our service providers when compared to other players in the market. And this helps us not only retain but attract good quality service providers. So we collect money upfront, and because we've collected money upfront, we sort of follow the same philosophy and we pay our service providers upfront as well. uh, for all our tech spends, whether it's cloud services, whether it's our SMS, WhatsApp, any tech spends, we try to go in for long term sort of contracts wherein, because of the annual commits, we sort of get favorable rates from them. And whether it's the topmost cost lever or the smallest cost lever, we are equally focused. And not just finance, but the vertical heads, these engineers who are heading these verticals, they are also cognizant of that fact, because all of that reflects in their P&L. One more thing probably that perhaps I can sort of highlight is we try to optimize our treasury functions, in the sense that whatever bank accounts we have, at the end of the day we ensure the balance is zero, because those accounts are current accounts and don't yield any interest. So these are the few steps that we are doing to optimize our working capital, because the real estate industry is pretty notorious with the builders, especially they have very very long cycles to release the payment. So we have a bit of receivable management there, but that's just, if you compare to overall no broker scheme of things, around 10 to 15%. 85% we collect the money upfront. uh,
Great.
you talked about cash flow forecasting, right? Uh, so currently, the term cash flow, cash burn, EBITDA positive are in the news, and for the right reasons, because at the end, startups where investors have invested, there's an obligation to return money. And because of the funding winter, or the way the uh, private equity players or VCs, the environment is right now, we are very very clear that the focus is very high on the bottom line right now. So it's not that just grow your top line and the bottom line is worsening. The focus on the bottom line is very very high. So what we do is, the finance function every 10 odd days, so let's say on 10th of July, we'll do a forecasting for how the cash burn of July is looking like. And we do every 10 days, so that we can tweak anything if required. And this discussion is held directly with the founders.
Sure.
So every 10th day we have discussion with the founders, and get a sense of how the burn looks like. And we are not just supporting the business, but we work with the business teams to sort of improve things. One more thing that we do is, we have almost 25 to 30 vertical heads. So within no broker, there are like 25, 30 small businesses like packers, movers, interiors, painting, cleaning, loans, etc. Each of this business is headed by a vertical head. So each of these functions, we prepare a P&L, and their single most important mandate, or the single most important point, is that the current month P&L should be better than last month's P&L in terms of the bottom line. So either increase the revenue, reduce the costs at the same cost, or reduce the cost at the same revenue. The bottom line has to improve. So by sort of partnering with these vertical heads and flashing these numbers, one, we are bringing a lot of awareness, and second, there is a genuine discussion that is happening with these vertical heads, especially over the last 8 months, to consciously improve the bottom line. So these two sort of points are what we are doing
Great.
every month without fail.
I think if I can summarize the consistency, the perseverance, and the discipline that I think the founders and you have, it sounds great, especially in these days when you hear about valuations coming down by 1/5, and how investors are really writing off. So it's really inspiring to hear as to the discipline, the consistency of managing business so tightly. So yeah, that's great to know. Ashish, my next question is around. See, I think typically what we saw in the last 10 years is how B2C payments kind of evolved, right? In terms of, we see a lot of payment companies that have come up, right, in the B2B2C space. B2B payments, which is typically AP automation, AR automation, right? Using of AI, ML, right? I mean, even before ChatGPT became a buzzword, there were companies which were incorporating AI in some shape or form, right? So, if you could tell us where, for example, No Broker is using automation, automotive tools in working capital optimization, APAR, I think the audience would love to know that.
So, on a monthly basis, we are doing lakhs of transactions. So, lakhs of incoming payments, lakhs of outgoing payments. So 5 years back, what we did was, and frankly, it's impossible for the finance team to process and reconcile lakhs of transactions. Even if you have an army of finance people, it'll still not be foolproof. So what we did was we did an API integration. So we got the banks which are slightly more technological savvy. Their technology stack is much better than the legacy players, and worked with our tech team. So 95% of all the payments are automated. So finance team is not manually punching or uploading the files on the bank server. Everything is automated and it's 24/7. So for example, the example which I talked about, where if a particular customer has opted for a packers movers service, we are paying that service provider the day the movement has completed. So by midnight, we'll release the payment. It's not possible for the finance team to sort of do this payment at 12 o'clock, and the amount of volume that we are processing. So API integration is something that we have done, and we are very, very clear that this is how it has going to be, because it's not possible for the finance team. Second, what we have done is, because the volume of the transactions are so huge, we implemented a tool for the entire payment gateway reconciliation. So what happens is we have these 4, 5, 6, or 8 lakhs transactions which are getting processed every month. So this tool, what it does is that we ingest our internal dashboard data, that these are the number of transactions that have been processed successfully yesterday. We give the bank report, we give we give the payment gateway reports, we give the bank statements. So this tool then generates, consumes the data, ingests that data, and gives us an exceptional report that, hey, whatever you are supposed to receive, the payment gateway charges are correctly levied. There is no excess charges that are being levied. Whatever money no broker was supposed to receive today has been received, and this reconciliation is to a paisa level. Uh, Whatever was supposed to be received has been received. There is nothing which is left out. So earlier there were 4 to 5 people who were just doing this. Now there is a tool which is being implemented. And same thing we are doing for our outward payments, that we need to know at the end of the day that there should not have been any excess payment to our partners. There should not have been any short payment. So this tool consumes our internal dashboard data as well as the bank statements to sort of give us this report that, yeah, whatever payments that should have gone, nothing is excess, short, etc. uh, so that's one area where we have sort of done the technological sort of integration. Third, we have a vertical called No Broker Hood. In that, what we do is we give our app, we basically give the phone to the security guard. So we sell our app to the gated communities, and we train the security guards to use the app. So the problem statement that was in front of us was that we had around 10 or 1,000 mobile phones spread across. Sorry, we had around 25 or 1,000 mobile phones spread across 10,000 societies. So on a monthly basis, now we need to verify that these phones, which are in no broker, fixed asset register, are physically present. No one has siphoned off with phone or not, and again, physically verifying this is not possible. So we work with the tech team to generate a sort of solution, and every month now we get a report that okay, these 25,000 phones every month, these are the phones where no brokerhood app is being used. We get the location, latitude, longitude, etc., and it generates a report that okay, these are the 500 societies where there is no report, or there is, we internally we call it like a ping. So there is no sort of indication of the phone being used in that society.
Okay.
uh, which then, so then we focus on those 500 societies. We call them, the on ground team calls them, and sort of figures out what exactly happened. Has the phone been switched off and kept aside? So these are the few things that we have tried to do to ease the burden of the finance team, and also partner with the business team to match the speed of business.
Great. Great. No, that's pretty interesting, especially the part around reconciling so many payments, right? I think India, so many consumers typically who use no broker. I'm sure that a faster reconciliation automation was the need of the hour, right? So that's really good to know. Ashish, I know we just have like 4 minutes left, so I had two questions, but I'll probably combine the two questions. So there is a lot in the audience who are aspirational uh, leaders or CFO who wants to become in your position, right? Who want to manage the CFO function. So my question is, what would be your advice around that? And my other question, which I'm kind of combining, is next 3 years, 4 years, right? Because it's kind of connected, because the aspirational CFO would need to know what is it he or she can expect 3 years, 4 years down the line. So I'm just combining these questions, that if you could tell us, how do you see uh, the trends that are there a few years down the line, and what would be your advice to somebody who's looking to becoming a successful leader like you? So yeah.
Okay, so I'll try to sort of quickly answer both the questions. First, I would advise, my first advice, and this is something my founders keep on telling to all the senior leaders. One is be an owner, don't be a tenant. So what I'm trying to sort of say is that take ownership uh, of the decisions and behave like an owner of the company. Typically what happens in big MNCs is that we work in silos. There's marketing, finance, operations, and then a lot of times there are things which the finance team feels it's marketing's responsibility or operations responsibility, and vice versa. And because of that, there's no action which is being taken. So in a startup, you have to think like you are the owner of the company, and if you are owner, then there is no distinction. Everything is yours. To give you an example, when I joined, I was asked by the founders to do the payroll. So I had no experience in doing payroll. And in all the companies, payroll is done by HR. So in my mind, I was thinking that why is finance doing payroll? But then I figured that, okay, because the founders are asking me, I'll do it. And it gave me tremendous amount of learning in doing that particular exercise. And salaries is the biggest cost item for our PNL, and typically any startup salary is the biggest cost item. So take ownership, even if you feel it's not really your job. If it's good for the company, please don't think and straight away do it. Second would be to be involved in the execution, get your hands dirty, especially in the initial stages. For example, doing payroll gave me tremendous amount of learning. I myself was doing everything from releasing offer letters, uploading salary structures, releasing pay slips, handling employee queries, even if someone has got, let's say, 200 rupees less. So I was explaining them, what exactly was the calculation. It gave me tremendous amount of learning. And also because finance, there was just 3 or 4 people. So, everyone was doing everything. Uh, because this really helps you going forward, this level of hands-on experience. Third, I would say is that you have to be very, very agile in your decision making, because finance cannot become a bottleneck. Startups operate at a very, very fast speed. The businesses move very fast, and the customer demand is very perishable. So you need to capture that. So you need to support the finance. The finance needs to support business team, but at the same time have the guardrails in place to ensure that all the compliance risks or commercial risks are taken care of. And at the same time, you should not be a yes man, that your job is not just to say yes to everything. If there's something which you feel is not really good for the company in terms of regulatory risk which the company might take, or the commercials are not really working out for that, you stick your head out and say no. And founders appreciate that. So again, this is something my founders say: honesty first, nicety later. So don't be a yes man. And last, I would like to say is, once a startup or your organization achieves some level of scale, say let's say Series C, hire specialist. This is one thing which I felt I did a little late. Hire, let's say, a legal head, a tax head, an accounts head early on. Uh, that was one. Sorry, I forgot. What was the other question? I don't know if you have time for the other.
Yeah, yeah. I think we have maybe a few, maybe a minute on the trends, right? Like 2 years, three
Yeah.
years down the line, what are the trends? I think somebody would have asked the question 2 years back, right? I think that I would have assumed the answer would have been, to maintain focus on the business, right? I think which I think no broker has been doing, right, on the fundamentals, right? Because I think last couple of years saw fundamentals go out of the window, right? But now we are seeing what is happening. So similarly, 2 years, 3 years down the line, how do you see the trends, right?
So the trend is that you need to be ready. Finance needs to have the capacity to match the business. At No Broker, for example, the time gap between a business idea to an execution is very, very fast. So between that, the and finance is the final sort of green signal. We give the green signal to go ahead, and we cannot take too much time. As I said, demand is perishable. So we need to support the business, but at the same time ensure the guardrails in terms of compliance, commercials, etc. in place. So one is, be ready for whatever business team throws at you, and a big part of it is uh, you know try and have a strong team. I know it sounds easy, and it's not as easy, but a big part of that job and the way to deliver it is that, as I said, once you achieve scale, have specialists, and then this entire team immediately takes the decisions. And I we at No Broker, everyone has autonomy, and similarly my team also has autonomy. If a legal head has, I will never, let's say, overrule my legal head or a tax head, etc. So all of us need to work together, and the key is to build that capacity. So you need to have that capacity in house to respond. You cannot then take, let's say, weeks or months to sort of figure that out. Second advice I would want to give is that try to automate as much as you can, because one, it reduces the time, it takes away the bandwidth to manage people also. Because uh, if you operate above a certain size, if you have, let's say, a big enough finance team, then you need to sort of keep everyone happy, motivated, etc., and there'll be churn. So try to automate as much as possible. And a lot of times we just figure out, that's how we met you also, right? Was to figure out how we can automate this particular function, and that's where we got the idea. So
Sure.
automation is very, very important, because then it reduces your time to respond.
Perfect. Ashish, thank you so much for the time. I think I found it extremely interesting, very insightful ideas, thoughts, right? Especially about managing a startup successfully, right? And I think the whole fact about the importance of automation, even in a country like India, where you have people, but you still need automation in functions like the CFO's office. So thank you so much, Ashish. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sudipta. Thank you.
Bye.